just trash everywhere in here. And you know what? We may not have clean floors. We may not have a good receptacle for all of our empty jugs. We may not have rebuilt calipers, or, that didn't work for the seed tubes. We may not have a lot of things around here, okay? But at least we've got a TV in the shop. Now, I mean, you may notice that it's missing some pixels up there, which may or may not be why it's in the shop. But, at least we've got a TV in the shop, right? Among all of this crap here, including some yellow things that I don't want on the bench anymore. And I think it's high time to do something about that. So, welcome back, everyone, to... Are we on Pony Motor Tune-Up? Is that what I was calling this series? I think it was. That's what we're going to go with. And we're going to get back to it. I'm not going to finish everything in this video, of course, but I'm going to get back to this, and I'm going to put my nose to the grindstone here and try and get some of this done. So I have all the parts and stuff here. That box is full of spare parts that I ordered to fix some things. We'll go over that in a minute, but we've got the main air cleaner, the pony air cleaner, the pony gas tank. We've got the intake runner there. We've got the oil fill and breather for the pony there. The gasket material, high quality gasket material, is in here still, along with mud daubers. Probably shouldn't have thrown it that way. I just cleaned up that spot. And then over here in the magic cabinet, we have the Magneto and the carburetor. And the right stuff. Finally found the right stuff, everyone. And with all that being said, oh yeah, we've got hydraulic fluid for the transmission. We've got... What is this? Pony air cleaner oil, I think. That bucket's full of old spare parts, too. So we've got all that stuff. We've got plenty of 1030 motor oil to change the engine oil in the pony motor. We have, if we open this cabinet here, we've got a box full of parts. We have another box full of, these aren't cat parts. These are the Caterpillar parts in there. So we've got all that in addition to a wide variety of other things. So we are not short on parts at all, but it is high time I get this stuff off the bench. I am tired of it being in the way. So let me get the other bench cleaned off, and we'll go over the spare parts that I ordered and just kind of pick up where we left off in the last video. In this box, we have a variety of treasures that I purchased probably, I don't know, a year ago. I don't even remember. It has been a while. But this box is full of most of the parts we will need to get this thing put back together. So we've got things such as grade 8 washers, more grade 8 washers. We've got a variety of little tiny machine screws to replace the screws that go around the gauge bezels and all that. So I've got plenty of machine screws for that, wide variety of it. I've got pipe nipples, brass, of course, because who doesn't like brass? Little nuts for said machine screws. Grade 8 nuts, coarse thread, spring that may or may not work for the governor. Haven't decided yet. We have lock washers, because lock nuts are for losers. More lock washers. Was there anything else in here? Oh yeah, we have more grade 8 nuts down in there. And then some regular washers and more regular washers. And you can never have too many washers because those are also shims. Now, we start getting to the good stuff here. That was a parts list I wrote way back when. This is where we start getting to the good stuff. A lot of this came from Orscheln before they went out of business completely. They're gone now. We have a fuel filter for the pony motor. We have 1/4-inch fuel line, which is clear so that I can see how dirty the fuel is, so that if I have a fueling problem with the carburetor, I know that it's just trapped with, it's got so much crud in it that it's filling the filter up, and I just want to be able to see what the fuel looks like. And then I also I bought another oil pressure gauge, because the one that's on there did work, but what happened was, I was going to replace it anyway, but what happened was on the back of the gauge where the studs are at, that hold everything on. I broke one of the studs off because the nut wouldn't come off of it because it had, been on there for so long. And I'm pretty sure, because the last person in there to do anything with that tractor and that pony motor was my great uncle, and he had a bad habit of reusing hardware if it looked halfway decent. So right here, in the last video, I mentioned I was going to order some studs, and I didn't because Rock Auto didn't have what I wanted at a price that I was willing to pay, just because the way it all worked out with the shipping and stuff, it was not working out the way I wanted. I don't think they had quite the right length and style either. So what I did was I went to a Granger Industrial, which is a cool place to get stuff if you've never been there. And I also looked at McMaster Car for all this, but I ended up ordering this grade 8 threaded rod. So this is 3/8 by 16. It's just coarse thread, and I will make my own studs out of this. Now I know that that's not 100% proper, because studs usually look more like that pipe nipple, where you've got an unthreaded portion and a threaded portion. That way, it seals at a certain point. But like I said, this is a little more versatile. It's not perfect, it's not factory, but it will work. And it was on sale, so I ordered, I don't even remember how much I ordered. I think I ordered 8 foot, because these are 1 foot segments. So I ordered 8 feet cut into those little segments there. So this is what I have devised to solve the problem for the 3/8 studs, because they're all coarse thread, so that should be fine. Now, the other thing that I did for the main air cleaner, I decided to just convert the whole thing to one thread pitch, coarse thread, because the old studs that came out, coarse thread on one end, fine thread on the other, and then they had fine thread nuts on there, and I thought that was stupid, so I just ordered studs that first and foremost would go all the way through that air cleaner flange. Now, let me grab one here, and I'll kind of show you what I'm talking about. But they'll go all the way through that flange, because one of the other problems I had was the old studs were varying lengths. And so what would happen is they wouldn't go all the way through here. So now, I guess, here's not the best example. It's on the tube, I guess. But this will serve as an example. So what happened on that tube was that they would thread in the old studs, but only like a couple 3. I want them flush all the way through that intake. I'm going to call it an intake runner. I don't know if that's correct or not, but in doing that, everything's a mess here. So in doing that, it'll thread in here like so. See if I can get you down in there with the camera. So I want them like this, where they're completely flush all the way through. That's going to hold everything better, but it's also going to stop dirt and rust from forming. It will preserve this piece a lot better. And on those old studs, going from coarse thread, and they weren't quite long enough, to fine thread, and then you had to have fine thread nuts, I'm switching everything over to coarse. And yes, this does angle, and so, some of these they should all stick out the same on the air cleaner. I originally was going to use bolts and go through here, but because it's angled like this, there's no way for me to get a bolt long enough started in there. So these are, I'll have to look, I believe they are a B12 steel, which is it's not a mild steel. It is gotta look here. Well, I mean, it said it was a B12 steel. And when I was looking at this, when I was looking into these, getting them and doing a little research, that is when I realized there is more than a few dozen different types of steel. There's a few thousand different types of steel. But B12 should be like a grade 5, and that's more than sufficient. I mean, it's going to see vibration some, but it doesn't have to support that much weight. This is more than strong enough to support that air cleaner, even when it gets full of oil and stuff like that. So that is the solution to the stud problem. This should provide me with all the mounting hardware that I need. This should be all the mounting hardware I need to put this thing back together. I'll have to start cutting studs out of this. So what I'll do is I'll screw the nuts on and I'll get the right length, and then I'll carefully go at it with the cutting wheel on the grinder. And I think I've only got one cutting wheel left, but I think I've got enough to cut all the studs I need. And then if I have to get more cutting wheels, I have to get more cutting wheels. So that's going to be the plan for that. These little machine screws with all of the appropriate washers and stuff should be more than sufficient to get the yellow plate that goes on around these. And this should be the right size gauge with the right size fitting. If this does not work, I will use the old gauge and I will hold it in there somehow. But I would rather have a newer gauge. I like numbers to tell me how much pressure I have. I want to put an actual value to whatever it is. So I like seeing my oil pressure in pounds per square inch. I like seeing my coolant temperature in degrees Fahrenheit instead of cold, run, hot, or the oil pressure being low, operating range. I don't like that. I would rather have numbers. I'm not throwing the old gauges away. They're still around. I think the old coolant gauge or the temperature gauge is right. Yep. Right here. See, I don't like this. I don't like it's an operating range. Yeah, I don't like that. I want to put a value to it. So with all the hardware, all the gauges, stuff like that, we should be able to put this pretty well back together. There are a few other things I'm going to do to this because I've been thinking about this over the past few months, and I might as well talk about it. There's a few things that I have come to a conclusion on. Don't remember if I mentioned them in the last video or not. I'll go ahead and put this stuff back. Make it look nice. So the first thing is the pony motor is not getting electric start put back on it. I'm not going to mess with it. The adapter flange is cracked. It's not compromised structurally, but it's cracked, and because it's cast iron, I don't have near the skill to weld that or fix it. I could cover it with JB Weld, and it would probably be okay, but I'm not going to do that. Yeah, all right, so there's that. I know for a fact I'm not going to put the electric start back on it. Second thing, this is going to get a coolant flush. So once the pony motor is running, and I've got the carburetor set approximately where it needs to be, and I've tuned the governor and all that other stuff, set it all up where it needs to be, adjusted, whatnot, I will change oil in the pony motor, and then I will get it started up, fill the tank full of gas, let it run, and we're going to flush the cooling system out in the diesel engine, and I will refill it with good fresh coolant. The coolant that I drained out to remove the probe for the old temperature gauge, the coolant looked clean. I didn't see any dirt. It didn't look brown or murky or anything like that. But it wasn't exactly great. So I'm going to go ahead and change it. I'll have to get some more concentrate because this is all the concentrate I have right now, and that's not enough. But it'll get good, fresh, green coolant in it, which is what it likes. And we'll solve that problem. What else had I decided to do? I was going to mention. I have to solder the butterfly screws in on the carburetor. I have to time. The Magneto has to be timed before it is put on the engine. Like, you need to set it. You need to take the cover plate off. You need to set the points or whatever. And then you have to time it to the engine using the gear on the back, and there's timing marks on there, and there's timing mark on the pulley or the flywheel on the pony as well. And I'll do all that. I have a service manual for this whole thing, so I'll have to go refresh on that. So all of that's going to happen, and then I will be changing the transmission fluid because it's full of water, and it has been for a while. This right here is old fluid out of the Versatile. I had to change a supply hose on the Versatile that went from the hydraulic reservoir to the distributor for the implement couplers. And a lot of that fluid that was draining out, it had some dirt in it just from flowing all over the place because there was no way for me to control it. The hose just broke when I tried to take it off. So I captured it in buckets, I let it sit for a few weeks, and all that sediment got to the bottom, and then I transferred it into clean buckets, which I actually cleaned really well, and all that sediment just stayed at the bottom of the old bucket, and so what is in here should be pretty clean, and this should be almost enough to refill that transmission case and give it some good clean fluid that is not full of water. And I've also taken precautions to stop water from getting in there again. So all that's going to be done. The fuel system, of course, is going to be reworked. I forgot to show you something in the box here. This was a $13 piece. It was not cheap, but this is going to be pretty slick. If I can get it out here. This right here is a brass shutoff valve. It's not specifically rated for gasoline, but it's rated for everything else that's gasoline adjacent, so it should be okay. And it will fit 1/8 inch to 1/8 inch. So I should be able to reuse all the existing hardware I have, because brass fittings, not really cheap. And this will provide me a good shutoff for that pony motor. And then I can shut the fuel off a lot better than the old style, which is the original factory shut off with the sediment bulb on it. I don't like that. I never have. If it was working right, it would be a little different, but it never did work right. And it wasn't sealing very well. And so it would just leak all over the place. This should fix that problem quite a bit. And I'll have to have some more Teflon tape to seal all this. But we're not going to be messing with any of that today. The big thing is, today we want to get... I just want to get some other stuff off the machine, get my studs cut, and get my gaskets made, which, speaking of, we will be using the high-dollar, high-powered, probably got a mud dauber nest all over it, expensive gasket material, which if I can get a hold of it, yeah. You can see where I cut the gasket out for the Magneto. This is some nice stuff. I like it. The problem is it's kind of a pain to work with because of that piece of steel that's sandwiched in between the gaskets. There's a gasket material there's a piece of steel in between. It does make it difficult to work with, but all of my gaskets will be made with this. So yeah, in today's video, all I want to do is get some stuff off the machine, the rest of the way, get my studs cut, get the gaskets made, things like that. It's not going to be super exciting, but we're going to get some forward progress made on this, because I want to have everything ready. When I start putting this back together, I want to do it all in one go. I don't want to have to put some stuff on and then stop and then come make gaskets and then come make studs. And I want to just make all my studs, all my gaskets, and then just go. And if I have to modify or redo it a little bit, that's okay. I just don't want to have to try and do it all at once. So I'll stop talking. I'll get set up here, and we'll start cutting some studs and cutting gaskets, get some stuff off the machine and all that. So I'll catch up with you. All right, well, before we get too far ahead of ourselves, I want to go ahead and put the governor back together and see if that spring is going to work. So I have all the components here, and I'm not trying to make these squeaky clean, because, well, to do that I'd use brake clean, and that really takes off the paint. But this brass bristled brush is pretty good for taking off the majority of the dirt and grease. So I've just been kind of cleaning on it for the past few minutes. It's not going to be, perfect, like I said, but it will be good enough that I can at least see what I'm doing, and I'm not going to be getting any extra dirt in here. So thought you guys might like to see a little bit of that. Now, I will also take this opportunity to just kind of clarify the last several videos I've done on this cat. They've been really, really lame. Like, I go back and watch them, and they're horrible. So I'm going to try and make this a little more exciting and be a little more personable, because this is some pretty boring stuff, especially if you're not all that into it. Yeah, it's cleaning up all right. One of the problems with these old machines is that they just get covered in so much grease and oil. And yeah, that preserves them, but it also makes them hard to work on and take apart, because you get dirt everywhere. But anyway, this video is going to be long, but I'm going to try and make it more interesting for you. And we'll keep that trend going. I'm going to try some better camera angles and stuff like that. Always trying to do better. I'll have to get something else to get in these little cracks and corners to clean it up. But the adjustment screw I am not going to take apart and mess with until I know I need to. There is a procedure in the book for setting both the carburetor and the governor approximately where they need to be, enough that the engine will run, and then you can do the fine-tuning later. So let's see. Yep, that'll go through there like so. Clean up this arm here a little bit. And this still moves on the ball nice and free like it should. And again, I'm not messing with any adjustments until I know for a fact that I have to, because this is set to run a certain way, and while it never did run all that well, I think most of that was due to the carburetor not being clean. So the chances are the governor's set just fine. So now I just need to squeeze that woodruff key in there a little bit so it's straight. And if I remember right, that should go on like so. Right? Yeah, it's... Well, maybe not. If the woodruff key would stay in place, that would be really handy. Maybe I need to stick a wedge in there a little bit, undo that pinch screw. All right, so we're going to do a small problem. The shaft here, where the keyway was at, was set in such a position that when I tried to put the arm on, it was interfering with this flange on the governor housing. So I took this off to see what the problem was, and this little ear back here was not engaging with this here. Don't remember what the part names are called. The gasket is all right. I don't see anything wrong with it. So I'm just going to give it a little bit of grease and put it back together. And then I will get the arm on here and all set. Then we'll see about adjusting that spring so that it fits right. All right, I went ahead and put the arm on first because this keeps wanting to drift down. I had watched a while back, Squatch253 did a video about these and the problems, or not the problems, but the process of putting them back together, and I didn't get that pinch bolt tightened enough. So I just have been sticking my brush in there kind of like so to act as a shim so that I can tap the arm on without damaging anything, because that would be really bad. So with that on there, maybe finally I'll go ahead and tighten down this pinch screw to keep it on there. That screw has seen better days. May have to use this stumpy one. I don't want to get too much torque on it. That would be bad. There we go. There, that shouldn't come off now. And we have just a little bit of movement, which is good. So then we'll just locate that in there, like so. Yeah. It's wanting to push out against that, so that's good. Go ahead and throw our screws back in. Anyway, like I was saying, I'd watched a video Squatch253 had done on these governors and how to put them back together and how they work and all that. If I can find it, if I remember, I will put it in the description down below. And if you have not looked at his channel already, if you are into these old Caterpillars, I would highly advise it, because he's worked on them a lot longer than I have, and he's dealt with a wider variety of them than I have. And I think they're neat, you know, just kind of because I think old things like that are kind of neat. But I am by no means an expert on these. And to tell you the truth, this D4, kind of a pain in the butt to work on. It's not really the easiest thing I've ever worked on. It's far from the most difficult, but it's not easy. Get that last screw started in there. When you're putting screws like this in, and I like these because they have real deep slots in them, so you can get a good bite on them, but you don't want to torque them down much, because if for whatever reason they start rusting, to get them back out is a real pain. And that's why I hate machine screws, is because if they ever seize, they are really difficult to get out. But gosh, get my screwdriver started here. That should do. And I did put a little bit of grease on the gasket on this piece back here just to help it out. I found that a lot of gaskets like that like to be lubricated. They like oil, they like grease. So now that that's on there, we should feel a definite stop there. And then everything should still spin nice and easy, and it does. No play in the bearing. I had taken the cap off of this when I first took it off the machine to test it, and it was all good. So now that we got that done, let's put our adjustment screw in, and I'll get my spring, and we'll see about getting that set. All right, so we have our spring. That's a number right there. I don't remember exactly what number it is, but I get all my springs, or I did, from Orscheln, and they came from Hillman. So what I'm going to do is just trim a little bit off of these so that I have a usable hook like so. Make sure you guys can see that. And so then I want as minimal a hook as possible to get this on, because I don't want to have to bend it later. So I'm just taking off a little bit at a time on both ends. Maybe a 1/16 of an inch until we can do that and that. That, not very strong. What I don't want to do is get it too strong. It doesn't have a lot of pulling power, really. It acts like it does. I don't know how much to mess with it. I could shorten it, but I don't think that would give me the result I want. I may have to go to, it's Tractor Supply now. It's no longer Orscheln, but I may have to go in there and get another spring. The problem, one of the many problems that this had before, I don't know if I have the old spring in the box here or not. If I do, oh, I do, right here. Okay, so this is the old spring. It's got a little bit of pull left in it, but I don't think it's worth a damn anymore. I think it's pretty well shot. So let me get the damn thing out of here. Yeah, come on now. I don't want to modify it any more than that, because that's a good solid hook. There's no risk of that coming off. So, oh shoot. So if we hook this up, it's not even, it has nothing left. There's really no spring left in this old one. It's shot. I kept it for reference, but it's old and it's worn out. Now this newer one is not bad. The one of the reasons, there's a lot of reasons stuff does not run right on this. The carburetor being dirty was one of them. The governor spring being shot was another one. But even if that spring was good, and this is the reason I think I want a stiffer spring, is because you're going to have a lot of extra drag by the time you attach all the linkage here that goes over to the throttle and choke adjustment screws. By the time you get all that set up, and this is the little cam that will go on the end here, and attach to everything. But by the time you factor in all that resistance and all that drag and all that play, this spring is not going to be strong enough. And I was concerned about that. So the length is fine. I am not unhappy with the length. It could stand to be just a tad shorter, and that would be okay. And cutting this and trying to form another hook, I don't think would work very well. But the governor is back together. I'm just going to leave it as is. I'm not going to mess with this adjustment here. This is nice and tight. There's no play on the shaft when I move the arm. The arm and the shaft are moving in unison. I can see just the top of the little Woodruff key there, so I got it on there good. And there's no real play there, so we're all good. I think the governor's ready to go. I'll just make a note to go and get a different spring before I start running the pony motor. Oh, I almost forgot. When put that cam back in, the best way to hold it in place is with this sad little piece of wire it came with. That's going to be the best way to hold that in there, stop it from going anywhere. Just like that. That is Cat Factory. All right, now we've got the intake manifold runner here, and I'm going to tap all these threads or just chase them to make sure that they are in good shape. Then we'll get a stud count and we'll start cutting studs. Now for lubricating taps, we save all of our old motor oil. It has a variety of uses around here, but we hang on to all that, and I like to use it in applications such as this. This might actually be gear oil. Sometimes it varies. But am I going to have to get... Yep, I'm going to have to get the actual tap driver. I thought this one might work. Yeah. I thought that this big driver I have might work, but I'm going to have to go get the smaller one. Give me a minute. All right, let's try it again. And I believe that we are straight. So just one-handed, all delicate-like. We'll just slowly and carefully run the tap down through here, give it plenty of oil. I do believe that these are through holes into the casting. Now, I don't know if you can tell on camera or not. You can kind of look while I'm messing with this tap. There's a little tiny hole right here off the end of my finger. And I am going to cover that with probably JB Weld, because that should work really well. A lot of people are probably going to have a conniption, a real fit over how I operate and do stuff here. You know, oh my gosh, you can't use JB Weld. You need to actually weld that. Okay. All right, I think we've hit the bottom there. I'm not going to force it. That should give us enough threads. Oh, yeah. All right. Well, the tap fell out, so that's good. Let me look over here. Yeah, okay, so they are not through holes. At least that one's not. So we'll come over here and do this one next. And the problem is these are exhaust, and exhaust stuff wears out, gets really rusty, all those extra heat cycles. So I'm not as worried about the intake ports, but these exhaust ports, because these are where the two little pipes from the pony motor attach. These are the ones I'm worried about having cracked threads or chipped threads inside, and I don't want that. So all right, so I have to get a wrench to turn the tap on those holes there, because the way this thing is cast, it's in the way. But should be able to thread a 3/8 bolt in both of these holes without much problem. And yep, that went in nice and smooth. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is all of the thread depth that we have. So it should be about the same on both. This one I know for a fact I went all the way to the bottom. So I guess on that other one, I could have gone a couple more threads, but I don't want to push it and strip something out or crack the cast or break the tap off. But that's about how many threads we have in there. About, 8 threads or so. That's pretty good engagement, no longer than those studs are. So that's all tapped out and good. I'll get a wrench and do the rest of these, then we'll go from there. All right, all the 3/8 holes checked out. There's just one of them that's a little tight, but it's not bad. We'll get plenty of good thread engagement and everything seems fine. So this particular hole here is one that I had already run the tap through a while back. These should be 1/2 inch, just coarse thread, and we should be able to thread this all the way through by hand with no real binding. And that hole there is in really good shape. So, yes, like I said earlier in the video, originally I was going to use bolts and bolt the air cleaner on, but then I quickly realized if I was trying to put bolts in this way while holding that air cleaner up, because it's not light, it's pretty heavy, that would be difficult. So then I thought, well, I'll come on the back side. But then when I came out to look and double check my bolt and thread sizes, I realized there's no way to get bolts in here. So I'll go ahead and clean up the rest of these threads and we can move on to something else. Okay, next on the chopping block, let's talk about studs and gaskets for that intake runner, because this is the next critical step. This cast iron ear right here is, if I remember correctly, this is part of the pony motor exhaust pipe mount, okay? And that piece also doubles as the pivot shaft for the governor arm, if I remember correctly. Regardless, this piece is actually important. The way it broke off, I could leave this off and it would go ahead and mount back up to the intake runner, okay, and it would be fine. But I think what I'm going to do with this is JB weld it back on. Not so much for strength, but just to hold it there, just so it's there. Of course, you know, that JB weld is some pretty strong stuff. And as you might be gathering, that is a common thing that we like to do around here, is use epoxy, JB weld, silicone, duct tape, super glue, gasket maker, all sorts of stuff like that. We are no strangers to that, and that is it's a workable solution. Is it proper? No. But again, I don't have the skill to weld that, and I don't think I would want to weld it even if I did have the skill. So we'll glue that back on essentially, and it'll be fine. Now, the interesting thing about that piece is the way it was held on was with a stud with a nut on it, which is a very odd sized nut. The camera keeps wanting to change. Let me adjust you there. Okay, so that flange was held on with this stud nut, and I don't have that flange in here. I'm pretty sure it's still on the tractor. And then it was also held in with a bolt. Now this bolt, everybody says cat bolts are really good, these old cat bolts. This one is serviceable. I could clean the threads up on this and it would be okay, so I'm not going to toss it, but I am going to replace it with a nice and shiny grade 8 by 1 inch bolt. And as you can see, the head on the cat bolt is significantly thicker than on the new bolt, but that's okay because this bolt's going to be new, and these aren't like permanent solutions, okay? These are just workable solutions until in the future I get the time to really put some effort into this tractor. Right now I'm just trying to get it back together so it'll run, and then later on I'll mess with it. And by later on I mean like years from now, not anytime soon. So that's taken care of. We'll replace that with that. This stud and nut will get replaced with a new stud and nut. These tiny bolts here, these are part of the exhaust flanges. They will all get replaced with proper studs. I might go ahead and go buy some actual inch bolts. Originally I was just going to do studs, but I may go buy some actual bolts. They're all like inch, except this one. It's a little short. May have to reuse it, but all the rest of these are inch. So we'll replace all that, and with new hardware, we'll be good to go. These right here are the old studs that held the air cleaner on originally, and they suck, so they will probably get thrown away because there's nothing special about them. We're changing that all to coarse thread anyway. So they'll get thrown away. And then if I need to, I have these extra short little cap screws. I believe these came off of the Grazer mower that I was working on earlier this year. So we have those as well if we need to. Now, as for gaskets, get those front and center here. This gasket is what goes behind that exhaust pipe flange, and it's actually not too bad. You can even still see the part number on it. I'm not going to toss this, but I'm not going to reuse it. I'm just going to keep it on hand. The gasket material I bought may not look like it, but it said on the Ag Kit's website that it was rated for exhaust. It was excellent for exhaust applications, so that's why I bought it. These two will get replaced. They're not actually in as bad a shape as you would expect. I imagine these are original factory gaskets. I don't think they are new because, again, my great uncle has a bad habit of reusing old hardware and stuff. If it looks okay, he'll go ahead and reuse it. He knows better, but he does it anyway. Not so much anymore, but yeah, that's his thing. So these will both get replaced. I'll make new gaskets. They're not going to be perfect. When I come out, the outside may look okay, but the inside parts are not. They're going to look like trash because that material is hard to work with. So that is what we're going to do with those. And then if we come over here to the piece itself, this gasket will be, I'll try and peel it off and copy it, but if not, I can trace it and we'll be okay. This little doodad here, this little punch out and that little punch out, they don't do anything. There's no through holes on the back side of that flange. I don't know why they're there. So yes, we'll have to have one and then two of the smaller gaskets. That larger one goes right here, and then there will also be a new gasket made for here, which is where this runner attaches to the intake manifold. So the next thing I'm probably going to work on is gaskets. Now, the way I did it last time was I had a metal plate set up, and I took a hammer and a chainsaw wrench, and I essentially punched this out of the material externally and internally, and it's not pretty, but I got it to fit. And that gasket is still on the back of the Magneto, by the way. It's ready to go whenever. So that's probably what I'm going to end up doing with the rest of this, is something similar. I'll trace it, I'll get set up, and I'll essentially chisel it out and do all that. It's going to be a lot of work, but they'll make good gaskets. I have high confidence in that. So that is the next thing I'm going to work on. And then when I'm done, we will move on to the next step, depending on how long that takes me. It may be today, maybe tomorrow. Should only be a few seconds for you guys, though. All right, so I was getting a little far ahead of myself. What I want to do next, because if I'm going to start making gaskets, I want to make all the gaskets at once. For the most part. I don't want to have to make a few and then go do something else and then come back and make more. Same goes with studs. And as you can see, I've already got a test stud made right here. It's not great. There's still kind of a burr there. I'm going to try and file down and just run a nut back and forth over it to smooth those threads up. But it didn't work out too bad. And this will go over in the intake runner. But anyway, the Magneto needs to be timed. And this needs to be cleaned up right here because those are not good threads. I need to see if I can maybe clean that up a little bit. So we'll remove my little ground wire there. But the Magneto needs to be timed to the engine. Most of you know this. And there is a timing mark on the back of it right there, which you line up with the timing mark on the pony motor timing gear. And I know everything was put back correctly, so it all should be right. But something that they talked about in the service manual, and I was flipping through it one time a while back, and I remember this, and it's kind of weird, and I'll explain why in a minute. But in the section to time the Magneto to the engine, check the adjustment of the contact points, blah, 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 blah. Turn the pony motor so that the number one cylinder is at top dead center. And then with the Magneto off the engine, remove the distributor plate and rotor from the Magneto. Rotate the Magneto drive gear until the A mark on the distributor gear is showing. In this position, the distributor rotor contact will be in line with the conductor, which is one of these here on the cover, for number 1 cylinder spark plug wire. The contact points should be barely separated. Install the Magneto on the engine and replace the distributor rotor and cover. Now, they mention having to do this, but here's the interesting thing, which is why this is weird. I showed you the timing gear back there. I got my hand on it right now. All right, so if I get you in there and you're looking at that, get the camera to focus. Come on. You can just barely see that A. Looks like a V to you. You can just barely see the damn thing. If I could just get that camera to focus. So the problem is, when I get in here, there you can see it. All right, so it's a little off. Now, I'm holding the camera at an angle, so it looks like it's straight on, but it's a little off. Now, here's the problem. I rotate the Magneto gear on the back to get that lined up, but there is a detent right here. Okay? I have to break over that detent to get it to move. Now, it's mostly in line. Okay, and I haven't disassembled this other than taking the front cover off to look at this stuff in here, and it looks good. I mean, I'm no Magneto expert, but this all looks great. So, you know, okay, sure, yeah, you pull this off, but it's all slotted. It only goes on one way, and this is all detented in, so I can't really do much with this. So, unless the only way to make this more straight on is when I line the timing gears up, this gear will move ever so slightly when it joins with the timing gear on the pony motor, and that will put the rotor and rotor gear in time correctly. So there's really not much I can do with this. And I remember reading that in the operator's manual, and I thought, oh, okay, that's something I need to do. I can't just time it with the gears, and there on the flywheel, there's a couple timing marks too. On the pony motor, you're supposed to line that up. There's a timing mark on the flywheel and a timing mark on the front cover. You line all those timing marks up. I thought originally that was enough. Then I read this in the manual. You're supposed to mess with this little gear in here, or I guess just make sure it's spot on. It's as spot on as I'm going to mess with. There's no way I'm getting in here to screw with it, because if I tried to make it better, I'd only make it worse. And so I'm just going to leave it, and it should be fine. So the only other thing I will do is put the front cover gasket on, and then we'll go over and put this on the pony motor so it fills up that cavity, and I'll take the rest of the stuff off the pony I need for guides to make gaskets and to make studs and all that, and then I'll just sit and make studs and gaskets. So that's the plan. I will be over at the machine in just a second, and we'll get some of that stuff done. Well, here she sits in all her glory. Spiders have been busy. We'll clear that out. But let's go ahead and get this thing uncovered, and we'll get to work. Oh my gosh, everybody. Look who I found coming over to help. Power Stroke Panther has come to help. Yes, he has. Oh my gosh. Oh, such a good kitty. Yes, he is. He's a very helpful panther. Yeah, you're going to be on the internet, sweet kitty. Yes. All right, don't fall off. Don't fall off. I know, but be careful that you don't fall off, because that would be bad. We don't want you to fall off, even though you're just spoiled. I know. You're very sweet and good. Yes, you are. right, now you have to move. So come here. Come here. I take the hood off. I do. All right, I know, but you got to look out, cat. All right, now I got you guys set up pretty good. So let us, yeah, okay. So earlier when I was talking about this piece with the broken ear, it's all integrated into the pony motor exhaust pipe. So that is still here on the machine where it will probably stay. Yeah, let's just open that up. You know, it looks good in here still. Everything is intact except for that mud dauber nest right there, damn it. So I may have to fire up the air compressor and blast some of this stuff off, and then, yeah, I better, because there's a lot of dirt and crud. A lot of mud dauber nests. Hopefully they didn't build in the Magneto cavity, but we'll find out pretty quick. So let me get this cleaned up, then we'll get to work. All right, I can't get you in there to see everything, and the wind's gonna blow. I knew it would. There wasn't a drop of wind before I stepped out of the shop, but that's all right. You guys can get the idea. So I'm gonna stand over the camera here and find the timing mark. Oops, sorry, bumped that, didn't mean to. So this seems okay. I don't see any water in there. Gears look good. So we're just gonna go ahead and rotate this flywheel. I'm looking for that timing mark right there, which we are supposed to line up with the front cover. Now there is a pipe plug back here. I will probably go ahead and pull to see if I can see those timing marks, and that way I can see and make sure I got everything lined up. But that one mark is right there. I don't know if you can see it. Yep, you should be able to. And then that little square right above the casting number, or the part number, is where that mark should be on the front cover. So what I need to do is go get a wrench that I can bust that plug out with. We'll go ahead and get the Magneto mounted up here, and I'll get everything timed up and make sure it's okay. Had to use 11/16, get the box end on that plug to get her broke loose. 9/16 is an awfully snug fit. And do I have compressed air left? Awesome, I do. Not a lot, but enough. So we'll just go ahead and pull that plug out, and then I'll run around to the other side, and there's the plug. We'll set that there. Now we'll go around to the other side and throw the mag in. So, should be, I think it's C. Is that the only? I believe that is the only mark on this. No. There's two marks. So I guess whichever one's closest to the timing marks on the, yeah, there's a mag mark. So we'll line that up. That should fit in the right way. Go ahead and pull. Well, that one came out as a whole stud. That's all right. I only want one stud to help locate it. Now, where'd I set the gasket? There it is. Get my custom gasket oriented the right way. Oh yeah. That's special. So we have mag, and it should go ahead and line up. May have to. All right, so it's going to be impossible for you guys to see, but I don't know for a fact that everything on this is correct. I put it on like they instructed, but I don't know that I got it exactly right. So what we're going to do is we're going to rotate the flywheel till the mag mark is in line with the mark on the cover. I'm going to go take the distributor cap off and stick my head in there and look and see if all that's lining up like it should. This step is arguably the most important because if I don't get the spark right, if it pre-ignites, it could screw up the motor pretty bad. So if I'm way off and it doesn't fire, that's actually better than being close but not right, because if it pre-ignites, then that's bad. So Magneto cover off. Now let's see if I can get my head in there and look. Okay, so that's A. So then, well, let's go ahead and I'll retime it. I'll pull this out. I'll make sure that that mark is still at A, and then I'll shove it back into place, and it should be right then, because I don't think I got it timed right. So we'll go ahead and fix that real quick. All right, come here. Let's see if I can get you guys in there to see it. We should have, if I can, hang on, I got to get up here where I can see what I'm showing you. All right, so we should have, we can get it in there. We should be all lined up perfectly. That should be just right there. And we have the, well, mag mark lined up. Sorry, we have the mag mark lined up with there. And there's no way you guys are going to be able to see it for sure. But I double checked through this hole, and you can see the timing mark on the pony timing gear, the cam gear, lined up with the timing mark on the Magneto drive gear. So the Magneto should be properly timed to the engine. So now that that's done, I will throw the cover back on, and we'll see about getting some of this other stuff off of here yet today. We'll start by just buttoning that plug back up just for safety. So dirt is going to get in here because some of the holes I'm about to open up by pulling studs are through holes into the top of the pony motor. So what I'm going to do is, when I get all this replaced, I got to run the motor to get the carburetor set. After I run the motor that first time and the carburetor's all set, what I will do is change the oil because I'll use the old oil to rinse away most of the contaminants that are going to get in here. So I'm going to remove this little stumpy exhaust port next, and I'm going to start by going the right way. Oh, that's actually coming off pretty good. Now, before I ever loosened anything on this, it was always kind of wobbly like that. So, oh man, we want to stop that from happening again. And if I could use bolts, I would, but some of these places it's really hard to get a bolt in. And if for whatever reason I need to take this apart, I don't want to have to fight all that stuff. Sometimes it's easier to just use studs. So that nut, not great, but it's usable. We'll go ahead and pull this other one off here. I'll fill all these holes with shop rags and stuff to keep most of the dirt out if I can. But, you know, some of these are going to be pretty hard to get loose. I may pull. Come on now. There we go. That doesn't look too bad. Oh, nope, it's cracked. It's cracked right there. Okay, well, JB Weld it is. And we'll use some thicker gasket material. I think that got stretched when it was put on last. So this here is going to have to come loose, I think, because there's no way for me to get the stud socket in with this right here. No, there's no way I could have done it with the Magneto on there, and I don't have enough usable threads left to get two nuts on there and break it loose that way. Same story with that there. So we'll have to remove this bracket. All right, now it should come off. Right? Let me give it just a real gentle. Yep. Just a gentle love tap. This is all cast. We don't want to break it. Oh, the gasket wants to stick. All right. There's that piece off. Little tiny gaskets. I'll make some more, or I'll just use RTV because I like that. So, all right, as it turns out, this here did not have to be taken loose. This is actually one of the studs that holds the top cover on. This is sorry, gosh, I was pointing at this. This holds the top cover on. So this stud, I'm going to leave alone. And I'm going to leave this one here alone too. So both of these 1/2-inch studs, I'm going to leave them. There's nothing wrong with them. This one here is okay. I may have to pull this one to get this off because I want that off. I know that for a fact. And I want this one off. I know that for a fact because they're both exhaust, but these two are just for the breather. And then these two back here, they actually look okay. I don't think I'm going to mess with them. They don't have a lot of rust on them. The threads look good. That seems all right to me. So I wish, this is one of the things I don't like about this cat, is that they like to do this. So instead of casting the starter adapter housing as one piece and the breather adapter is one piece and then bolting them together on the top cover, instead of doing that, it's all integrated, because this is a new enough unit that the pony motor came standard with electric start, I believe. It's a new enough tractor that they just put that on there as standard, which is okay. I mean, you know, people probably got tired of yanking on a damn flywheel, and I don't blame them. But yeah, there's that. And then this switch, probably ought to take that switch off and clean the inside of it and fill it with some electric grease. It still clicky clicks good. That just sends the ground wire will run from the Magneto there to the switch, and that's what turns your stuff on and off. I may take that off and clean it. So, all right, let's move over to the other side. All right, so here on the other side where the sun is shining and you can't see because of all the shadows, these two studs here, like I said, are for the carburetor. I'm not going to mess with them. I'm mostly concerned about the exhaust studs. I have to use the right size socket. That helps. These tubes, this is just an awkward design. So this one you can access. We'll actually leave a few threads on that. So I think I can get this one off. It sits at kind of an angle, but I don't want to put a wrench on it. I like ratchets. And you know, it really does surprise me that as rusty as these studs are, the nuts are coming off without too much trouble, which I am happy with, because that's something I'm always concerned about, is stripping a bolt or something like that. It's also a benefit of having coarse threaded hardware. That fine thread stuff likes to stick when it gets old. All right, we'll pull this off, take a gander at it. It looks all right, and I don't know if you can tell or not, but it's got some of the original paint left on it. That's pretty cool. All right, so stick us a shop towel in there, and I'll go get my tool to pull those studs out. Let's see about pulling some of these studs before my phone runs out of power. I think it'll cut the camera off if it gets too low. Now, these particular ones here, actually, they're not. Come here, I'll show you. These particular ones here really are not too bad. So I'm gonna go ahead and leave them. They're not as rusty as I thought they were. Threads are all in good shape all the way down to the flange, or that cast boss right there. I'm not gonna worry about it. These here, I don't remember what these here. Oh, these are for the governor. These are for the governor. I'm not gonna mess with them either. I think they're okay. So I guess really we just need to pull those two studs on that side. I know for a fact I want to replace them. So I guess do that and call her good. That should give you a pretty good view. So while I'm pulling these, some of you are probably wondering why in the world, is that not going to work? Some of you are no doubt wondering why I ordered 8 foot of 3/8 rod if I'm not going to use it. And the reason why, it's not wanting to work. The reason why is because it was on sale. It was only like $2 a piece. And so I thought, well, I'd be kind of stupid to not grab any. So I went ahead and picked up all that. Turns out, yeah, I didn't need it, but I didn't know that at the time. Let's go ahead and remove that bugger so we can turn. It's starting to grip. If I snap this off, that's going to be a bad day. If I snap this off, I'm going to end the video. I'm almost done with this video anyway, but there it went. Awesome. Let's take a look here, because either I broke it loose or I snapped it off. Tore the hell out of that gasket, that's for sure. And that's still some of that metal gasket. I guess there was another layer on there. Excuse me. I may have to double up on the gaskets. I got to be careful about doing that, though, because you might upset the clearances, and because everything's cast, it may want to... Cast doesn't like to bend and twist as a general rule, so let me go grab my channel locks. I might be able to move it the rest of the way with those. Let's see here. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. It's working. There we go. Yeah, it's coming out. All right. Good deal. Can I? And you know what? Those aren't too bad. This upper part's shot, but the threads that went into the head there, they're not actually that bad. I probably ought to get a bolt or something to put in there just to keep it clean. Should do okay. All right, now I don't know if I'm going to be able to get my tool in this other spot. We'll see. Well, there's success there at least. Nope, it doesn't want to go. I'd have to pull this stud, and I don't want to do that. So let's try channel locks. I don't think this is going to work all that well either. Nope. Okay. Then we will do it the hard way. I don't want to get them too tight because then I won't be able to get them back apart, and that would be bad. My. Ladies and gentlemen, this is just being stubborn. Well, let's try something else then. There we go. Now I'm moving the stud. That looks good. I'm not going to replace it unless I have to, but yeah, I'm pretty sure there's dirt in here now. They're dry, so I guess that means no oil was seeping through them. Haven't decided if that's good or bad, but all right, now we should be able to, if we can get it broke loose, I can finish it with the channel locks. There, it moved. Now let's try it with these. Nope, it's not having it. In hindsight, probably should have left the mag off, but there, I think I got it loose enough I can get her the rest of the way with these. Yeah. Well, there's no reusing them now. I've boogered those threads pretty good. Hang on, do I have any air left? Awesome. All right. Got us another stud and got us part of a gasket. All right. All right, so I believe that's all of the hardware I want to remove from this and replace. I just wanted to make sure everything was the right size, and I figured, oh no, it's not this one, it's that short one. Where'd I put it? It's right here. This short one is developing a crack right in there. I will JB weld over that, and it will be fine. Everybody loves JB weld, right? So with all that done, I'll go ahead and button this back up, and we'll head back to the shop see what we got to work with. Well, everyone, I think that'll do it for this video. I know that it wasn't particularly exciting, but I am getting back to this. That was the biggest thing. So now that I've got everything disassembled, I have all these little pieces and stuff, I should be able to fix everything up, get my gaskets made, get all of my studs made. They'll hopefully be a little bit better than this one. I'm going to have to do a little more filing. That end's kind of burred badly. But I'll get everything made up and put together so that in the next video, my plan is to just go over to the machine and put everything back together. That's the plan. So I'll have to get, the oil pressure gauge ready, and I'll have to get the bezels for the gauges ready, make sure all this stuff is sealed up and okay, make sure all my gaskets that I'm going to need are made, have all my hardware out and ready and all that stuff. It takes some time, but I'll get her done. I have no clue when the next video will be out. I'm going to do my best to get it out pretty soon, but the last time I said that, it has been almost, I think, a year or over a year since I've been doing anything with this Caterpillar. So we did get quite a bit done today. Got all that stuff off, got the governor back together, got this stuff back together. And the thing is, it's little things, and it didn't take a lot of time, but it was a heck of a mental hurdle for me to get over to go out and do it. And it took about as long as I expected. So, beautiful day to do it. It's all done in any case. The TV looks really nice up there. Starting to get dark outside, so I'm done for today. But yeah, I'll get all that made, and then in the next video, we'll see about actually putting things back together. So y'all stay tuned for that. I imagine this video is going to be pretty long by the time you see it, so I appreciate you sticking around. I'll get off of here. You guys take care, and we'll see you in the next one.